Hello, Ute here. I got bumped again from Megyn Kelly. I'm trying to be a good sport about it. But I have to say that Emma and I are affected by this. And just to let you know that if you ever have a friend, who's a trans widow going through this, talking to you or talking to you about her past, and she's already well through it, um, if you have the time, please just let her talk and be really sympathetic and so on, because both Emma and I felt um, that we feel a little bit disrespected. And I happen to know that we got bumped first because of Obama going out with lecturing the bros about who to vote for. And then the second time was because of a ridiculous Saturday Night Live style video that Kamala Harris submitted to the Al Smith dinner, a political tradition in the U.S. prior to presidential elections. And uh, and it was so stupid that everybody had to go do all of their own, stand-up comedy routines responding to this. And it's a little bit hard to watch that when in your mind you're walking around in your garden trying to compose the most cogent, least emotional way to tell a story of trauma and to feel that you are also telling the story of 63 other women's trauma. So I I'm assuming that I'll get in a better mindset and it will happen in a couple of weeks. What I tried to urge them about was that Proposition 1 or Proposal 1 in New York is a very disingenuous and dishonest effort to thrust terms of trans ideology into the New York State Constitution such that a murderer who now has taken a female identity, who is serving time in San Quentin, is, or wherever, I'm sure there are some in New York, that he and Lambda Legal and the ACLU would demand that at all times he is referred to as a woman, and that the murder would be listed as a crime committed by a woman, even though trans woman is a gender identity, not the sex. And if we can vote no, all of you in New York, tell all your friends, vote no, it's dishonest. I've really been putting myself out there with some Zoom meetings and things, even though it exposes me a little bit to concerns about my own safety. I'm doing it anyway. So, you know, I'll let you know. I guess I was not judicious in telling you that I was going to be on Megyn Kelly. And her showrunner had said, we're settling on a time for you that we're not going to bump you again, But then, and it was just the thing about the Catholic schoolgirl outfit in that video, and actress Laura Loomis, gestures, her autistic like gestures, that was akin to what Jerry Lewis used to do. That was mimicking kids who had muscular dystrophy. And, on some level, Jerry Lewis was a brilliant comedian, but on the other hand, he did that kind of imitation and he, suffered when people decided that wasn't appropriate. So I don't know why Kamala Harris would put something out that is offensive to Catholics and offensive in terms of the way it portrays children with anything on the autism spectrum demonstrated through their behavior. Shame on you, Kamala Harris. Shame. Shame on you. Personally, don't go look for it now because I would rather that it is just that nobody watches it. So, and one of the reasons is that I have this list of women. That's on my list of information that I'm giving out all over town, not directly to people. I'm dropping it off as if I was in the Norwegian resistance with Max Manus and the Pele group, bicycling around in the dark, but with lights, um, and leaving, a few papers on a table in public with a couple of stones. I decided I shouldn't do stones anymore. I should do acorns because people might think I'm, going to throw a stone through a window. And so I just think all this through. But I'm doing my civil disobedience. If you are in New York, at least talk to your friends. At least use whatever social media you have for vote no on proposal 1. It pretends to be women's reproductive rights, which are already enshrined in 2019 in New York state law. Roe is enshrined 2019 New York state law. It is redundant, and they are only force teaming this with the terms gender expression and gender identity to be enshrined in the New York State Constitution, so that if we have somebody in New York who did a thing like this, which we probably do, but this guy's in California, this is also a little visual that I'm doing. He strangled her because she wouldn't go along with pretending to be a lesbian, 2 little orphan daughters. This was about 15 years ago. He's now serving 25 to life in exactly those California penitentiary places where Lambda Legal and the ACLU have demanded and sued so that these men can be in the women's section and have those operations. And Kamala Harris, you don't call them convicted murderers, which is what they are. There's this other one that was, he goes by the name Skylar DeLeon. He killed 3 people and is serving life in San Quentin. And that case was exactly the one, and in that famous clip, Kamala Harris is talking to this big dude in a dress saying inmates are deserving to have affirmative care when they are trans. And the inmate that this revolved around the first time was someone who calls himself Skylar DeLeon. I know his original name had a Julius in it. And he had been sentenced to death, but California has a pause on the death penalty. So, yeah, I got a little worked up, you could say. And this is take 2. I decided the other one was too dark. I know this is dark, but this is the truth. And now I'm going to go right into Ondine, update on Ondine. I was able to retain custody of my daughter during our divorce, but when she was 6, my ex-husband had gotten a well-paid job, moved his mother to our city, and sued me for custody of our daughter. They're all grown up now. She does have contact with her, and her ex-husband died. My lawyer was terrible. I didn't understand at the time why my ex-husband asked that the records of our divorce be sealed and be separated from the new custody case. I think this should be illegal because the child was in grave danger with his behavior. You'll figure this out. That is really wrong because later I learned why. The judge took our case under advisement for 5 years so that we couldn't appeal his decision in a higher court. So that means that the judge suspected that husband would try to get custody back. And so the daughter by this time my daughter was old enough to, in quotes, choose. And I think she was only about 11, who she wanted to live with. I never felt like I had a voice or that anybody cared about the kind of life my daughter was being raised in. I refer you back to Behind the Looking Glass at Lime Soda Films YouTube channel and the parts where Emma, daughter of, talks about a very similar existence. My ex-husband was a functioning alcoholic, been arrested for cocaine possession, chased by 5 police cars while he was in drag. That's what we called it back then in the 1980s. Anyway, my new husband and I, thank goodness you moved on, were labeled religious zealots. Oh, yeah, that happened to me too. Who belonged to a cult. It wasn't a cult, but a regular church. They lied about us terribly. When I asked my daughter about all of this after she became an adult, she said that my ex-husband made her promises which he didn't fulfill. She also told me that she began to experience the same kinds of emulation that I had. So he went from sneaking on his wife's underwear to sneaking on his daughter's underwear, right? That's what happens when they develop breasts and, have underwear that he could maybe squeeze into. She would find his scent on her underwear and bras in her drawer, returned to her drawer, where he would wear things and put them back without washing them. I'm not sure how old she was when he came out to her, but after she became an adult, he would cross-dress and they would go to bars together, drink and play pool, etc. I think with Emma, because the pub laws are different in Britain, she got taken when she was underage. He also took her and our grandchildren to the city pride parade. So this is much later when, the daughter had children. He passed away a few years ago from brain cancer. He drank a lot, used marijuana, and snorted a lot of cocaine, according to his daughter. He donated his body to cancer research because he couldn't afford to be buried anywhere. So they looked him over, cremated him, and sent her the remains. He had 9 brain tumors. He lost his sight, his hearing, and his ability to walk or speak at the end. My daughter and her adult children took care of him while he died. It was very tragic and traumatic to them. And then she says, just like me, I didn't mean to rant, but finding someone who understands these kinds of relationships is helpful. Thank you for having the courage to make your voice heard and giving others a voice. Ondine. And now I'm just going to quickly read the words of 2 men who ideate that they are female. They're kind of famous. Julia Serrano, author of Whipping Girl. I would imagine myself being sold into sex slavery and having strange men take advantage of me. Going right on to Andrea Long Chu, who wrote Females. AGP, that is autogynephilia. See, loving to feel yourself as female and getting off on it. AGP describes not an obscure paraphilic affliction, but rather the basic structure of all human sexuality. Because if you have a sexual fetish and you are a man who thinks that you are actually female somewhere in this inner spiritual core, then you know about all human sexuality. All right. Out to the walks, out to the garden, planting the bulbs. Thank you.